Blackhat from 2015. This is a movie. Yeah,
Speaking
that's
of
right.
Michael Mann,
There we go. Yeah. Michael Mann directed the film. The IMDb plot summary: a furloughed convict and his American and Chinese partners hunt a high-level cybercrime network from Chicago to LA to Hong Kong to Jakarta. So Chris Hemsworth also starring Viola Davis and Tong Wei. So I brought this film in, and I'll just note too, like this is the director's cut version of the film, which is pretty different from the theatrical version. But I brought this film in because I think this was another attempt for Chris to move outside of relying on his physicality a lot and see if could he be the main character in a movie that is very internal. I mean, all of Michael Mann's movies are about the
Mhm.
interior struggle of a man. And that's what Chris Hemsworth's, trying to bring to this part in the film, and not rely on his humor that got him through Thor. And again, his physicality does come into play towards the end, because you do have to believe that this guy can go up against actual like terrorists with guns and knives and fighting. But that's not what the movie's about, as again, no Michael Mann movie really is. And it's interesting. Like I think when I first, actually, not I think, I know when I first saw this movie, I was incredibly disappointed in it. It didn't work and on really any level for me, other than one just incredible gunfight towards the middle of the film. But I've kind of come around on it more.
Hmm.
And actually, especially after the director's cut, I think the movie works better in that order of the plot. But honestly, on Chris's performance, it got really panned a lot when the movie first came out, of not necessarily the performance of why are you casting Chris Hemsworth as a hacker. He's this big, good looking guy. It's not like some small, like weedy, pale kid who you just imagine in your head is sort of what hackers look like. And I think a lot of people just couldn't get beyond that. And I don't know. Yeah, I've come around on this film a lot more in the coming years, and feel that actually he is able to pull off some of this internal pathos that is necessary for what this character is going through in this film. So it kind of now starts to work a little bit more. I mean, the film works better than his performance to me now, but I'm kind of coming around. I think maybe this movie will raise even more in my mind when it comes to his performance over time as I continue to watch it. But I was curious on your thoughts on this film, and had you been black hatted before
Yeah.
for this podcast?
No, I didn't watch this movie after all the hate it got. And so, but I always want to check it out because I do like Michael Mann. So I
Mhm.
think it was kind of after Ferrari, it was kind of on the list to kind of go back and watch this movie. So I'm glad I watched it. The movie's okay, and it's not as bad as I thought it would be. Actually, it has
Mhm.
a lot of the pieces of a Michael Mann thrill ride with a lot of internal struggle, like you said. And I love like how international it is in a scope. And I think it's hard to make a movie about hacking and stuff that's happening on a computer screen. It's not tangible. Like, you can make a movie about journalism and its issues with the insider, and even there it's difficult, but at least you can grab hold of a newspaper, you can
Mhm.
point to something, versus here it's difficult to do that. And all those sequences of being hacked and shots through the cables and wires getting into the computer, it's like, what are we doing here? Like, this, none of this really works. But points for trying to kind of
Mhm.
bring some level of thrill to the act of hacking and breaking in, because that is the breaking in, right? Like, that's what the thrill point is. But it's really hard to do that. When it comes to Chris, yeah, this just does not work for me at all. And I'm not even talking about the physicality, because maybe a hacker can be a hot guy with perfect hair and
Yeah,
abs.
I think
Sure, it
I
can
think so.
happen.
Yeah, it can
It can
happen. Yeah.
happen. I
Yeah,
can
they
get
can.
past that. It's just more of, like you were saying, the internal struggle. It's just all surface level in my mind. And this really goes back. When I watched this movie, that's when my thesis really came into place. I was like, oh, you're a model, which is that you're marketing a product, and this is all going to sound a little bit harsh, so bear with me, especially as somebody who likes him. I think Thor works because it's also a product, and he's able to market that. And yes, we've talked about the pathos and the humor and such, and that goes with it. But I think it's within a little radius of the central line. Versus what acting really needs is sort of really going in the depths of somebody, exposing yourself emotionally and getting to that vulnerable place. And that is what the internal struggle that you talked about is. And it just doesn't come through. It just comes off as blank to me in this movie. And of course, the bad American accent does not help. Every time he opens
Yeah.
his mouth, I'm like, oh gosh, this is pretty bad. And I just kept thinking of Russell Crowe, or I kept thinking of Al Pacino from The Insider. Of like, okay, if you can't do internal, ham it up. Those are your
Mm.
two choices in a Michael Mann movie, or really in any movie. And it's neither. It's just flat. It's just boring. So that's my thing. I said he needs to somehow be unlocked of this thing of, I don't know, his own beauty or what have you. Or I don't know, maybe we are at fault as audiences, or I'm at fault as audiences because I'm putting that baggage on him based on how he looks. I don't think I am. I think there is just something missing there. So yeah, it's because of that the movie doesn't work. But if I remove him and put somebody else, like the machination of the movie, the plot of the movie, what it's trying to say is actually pretty good. Like I was not bored at all. I would watch it again. And if there was somebody else than Chris, this movie would be very good, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I think the more times I've seen this, the more I've been appreciating sort of what Chris does. And like,
Hmm.
with Michael Mann movies, they are so much of it is so internal that the actors a lot of times do like an initial sort of viewing of these films sometimes do come across like nothing's really going on because everything is like subtext, super subtle. It was actually the time I was watching this movie, I was thinking about Miami Vice, which is like one of my favorite
Hmm.
movies of all time. And Colin Farrell's performance in that movie, he's also going through that where on the surface level, it does sort of look like nothing's going on. And it's just a very boring performance. But I find there is actually a lot going on the more I see the movie. And that's why I'm thinking maybe the same thing will happen to me with Hemsworth here. And it's just like over time it'll work for me a little bit more, especially the first time I saw it, like you said, it was completely like nothing's going on. He's literally just like an empty vessel. What's this movie even about? I don't mean from like a plot standpoint, but what's it kind of trying to say? And then the more times I would see it and sort of realize, okay, this is the danger of these hacking, but just these small little tiny things of these computer code can literally like blow up pumps and have these gigantic effects on the entire financial systems. So like these tiny things making these large impacts on the world. It's like, okay, I kind of starting to kind of ground on the thesis of the film, and then that makes me better appreciate what Chris Hemsworth character is going through, even though again it's like not much there. And that the actor, it's a lot on the actor's shoulders. And
Yeah.
yes, he's not a Colin Farrell, but he's definitely not like a Russell Crowe either in like The
Or an Adam
Insider.
Driver.
Or Adam Driver, right, from Ferrari too. That also,
He's so
on
good in it.
surface level, it looks like kind of nothing could necessarily be going
To me,
on.
it was amazing.
No, yeah,
Like,
no,
yeah.
it definitely is. But I think this is Chris trying to step into that, and then maybe for me, it's just going to be I'll gradually get ground down over time and start finding things in it, which can happen a lot with me and Michael Mann movies anyway. But I think this is a misfire for him for sure. But it's one that I've been more interested in as I've continued to see this film a lot. So especially on this viewing, actually, I something about his performance worked for the first time for me a little bit more. I don't, again, it's hard to kind of describe. And again, it could just be the more times I see it. If folks haven't seen the movie, I do think it's worth checking out. Over time, it will grow in appreciation, maybe not to the extent that Miami Vice has, which, at the time also was something that was passed over. And now, it's viewed a lot as a masterpiece by a lot of folks. I don't think it'll get to that level, but if you have not seen it, I do recommend trying to seek it out and definitely try to find the director's cut if you can. They make some major changes in how the plot unfurls, and it
Mm.
works a lot more than the original theatrical version, in my opinion. Hi there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I review a new release and then discuss 6 other movies made by that film's actor or director and how they shaped us. Subscribe right now or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.